Hey everyone, before the video, let me real quick show off this custom scenario. I just want to enter the cheat codes to reveal the map and, oh. It might look like OBS is recording a black screen because entering the cheat code crashed the game, but don't worry, that's just because entering the cheat code crashed the game. Age of Empires 2 is an incredible game. So incredible, in fact, that you can break it in a variety of ways and it's still fun to play. Even the laggy PowerPoint presentations of the HD edition, in a grand display of synergy across Microsoft products, were still enjoyable. But the recent updates have gone beyond the brokenness that people seem to have tolerated so far from DE. After the end of April patch, the Malay, who are supposed to have a bonus that makes them advance ages more quickly, don't actually receive this bonus, and instead need to research 166% of the age technologies. In the grand scheme of bugs that have occurred in the Aoe2 remasters, this bug, at least to me, seems rather minor. It's 1 out of 35 civs that has a small problem with it. But it's an obvious bug, easy for streamers to point out, and easy for everyone to stumble upon and reproduce. It's not a situation where sometimes the feature works correctly and some users haven't encountered the error. Everyone can notice it right away. Pretty much every update, not just for Aoe2 DE, but for HD, Age of Mythology Extended Edition, and Age of Empires 1 DE, has been rushed out, unpolished, and riddled with bugs. At times, it can feel as though one step forward leads to 2 steps backwards, as patches fix some bugs but introduce others. Let's take a few moments to discuss the current state of the game, and the situation surrounding all of these bugs. The place to start is with the 256 times technology cheat code. This was a mod for the original game, building upon the 9 times technology mod to let players do exactly what the title says, research technologies 256 times. You can do ridiculous things, such as getting nearly invincible villagers, or getting Mingudai to shoot across the entire map. It's the type of thing that helps promote the game, as ridiculous stuff like Ethiopian siege onager nukes are hilarious, popular to casual players, and get over 1 million views when someone features them on YouTube. Let me be clear, creating this cheat code is a good idea, but it doesn't matter how good the idea is when the execution is as flawed as it turned out to be. The Ethiopian nuclear siege onagers? Nope, you can't research that tech multiple times. So, right off the bat, what is probably the most recognizable and fun use of 256 times techs doesn't work. Next, it's a time-limited event. If you don't have time to play during the event, then you can't unlock the cheat code. Cheat codes are one of the fundamental pieces of Aoe2 that people find fun, and this system locks cheat codes away from many players. By themselves, these issues would be really bad, but they're nowhere near the biggest problems introduced by the update. The x256 cheat is incredibly buggy. So buggy, in fact, that even in games where the cheat code isn't enabled, it's possible to research technologies for free and to research a technology multiple times. The bug is fixed now, so I'll explain how it worked. It's easy to reproduce in a laggy multiplayer game. If you want to advance to the Castle Age for free, you need to have 200 gold to pay for the Castle Age, and then between 800 and 849 food so that you can afford the Castle Age but can't afford to create a villager afterwards. Then, you just click on one button at the same time as you press the hotkey for the other. If you see a villager get queued, then cancel it, that means it worked. The age upgrade disappears, but you can see the progress bar at the top of the screen, where you can also see that you didn't spend resources on it. You can do a similar bug with other technologies. Queue up some units, then click the technology while pressing the create unit hotkey. This can be done in early feudal age with the supplies technology, which subtracts 15 food from the cost of militia, in order to give them a negative food cost, so you gain food by creating militia. That's infinite resources, which you can then sell for other resources at the market. And the Ethiopian blast radius upgrade? Oh, if you thought that was actually bugged and you couldn't research it multiple times, you were wrong. You just didn't believe hard enough in the bugs. All it took was one player's abusing this bug to drive others away from playing in the ranked ladder. By using the cheat, the player shot up to the top of the rankings, then matched with expert players in 1v1s and proceeded to ruin their streams. A single cheater forced the experts essentially to stop playing ranked 1v1s for several days. The in-game report function served to be utterly useless, as it took several days before this obvious cheater's account finally was banned. Even if you don't want to abuse bugs, this issue can still happen accidentally, and it can be hard even for expert players to notice in the heat of a hectic game whether they research quadruple mid-axe or six-man saw. Because of the bugs introduced by this patch, the Microsoft-sponsored Battle of Africa tournament is being played on the old patch, so all the practice teams had done on the current balance patch goes out the window as they need to readjust to the old mechanics. Players are left wondering, why aren't these issues addressed? Where is the hotfix? How is the game broken for over a month? Why haven't the developers said anything about these issues? To attempt to answer these questions, I think we can get a good sense of the development priorities by looking at this post from the studio lead of World's Edge. If you don't know what World's Edge is, that's okay. I didn't either when I first saw the name. So I did what any reasonable user of a Microsoft product would do. I opened up DuckDuckGo and I Googled it. It turns out, World's Edge is the name of the studio Microsoft formed to manage the Age of Empires franchise. Rather than name themselves after the year 2020, they opted for a Microsoft product brand Synergy. The list of achievements they chose to highlight for 2019 includes creating a Discord and insider profiles, an ad campaign they ran on social media, building a play lab, and a vague statement about visualizing the future. One of the goals for DE was to unite the community in one place, in a definitive place. Right now, there are a variety of community sites. There's AoE Zone, AOK Heaven, the subreddit, various streamer and mod discords, the AI scripter forums, the HD Edition Steam forums, and various other websites. Now with DE, they've created another Discord server, another set of Steam forums, their own forums, and an insider of the program and newsletter inside of these forums. That's creating not just one, but many new places that all have no interaction with the existing community. It's a very out-of-touch thing to highlight in your end-of-year highlights post. Then there is building the internal play lab. Playtesting was one of the most important aspects for Ensemble Studios and their design philosophy for Age.
Playtesting is the heart and soul of what we do. There's really no way that anyone can make a game in a vacuum, and at least our experience has been that the more iterations of the game that you can get out there, the better a game you're going to have as an end result. So one of the things that we embrace as part of our core philosophy is getting a game playable as soon as possible and then getting it out in front of the entire company and having everyone play the game and generating feedback on a constant basis. Once, twice, 3 times a day during crunch time, there's basically a game going on constantly. And we mirror this as we go out. And when you begin the game, you may have a small core of your team playing this game and getting that kind of feedback. When we get a little bit more involved in the process, then the entire company is playing the game.
If you ever read an interview or listen to one of the Ensemble developers talk about the game, playtesting almost always is their main point of emphasis. Sandy Peterson has an awesome YouTube channel where he discusses hearing a talk about playtesting RTS games. They said, you have to playtest as much as 3 whole months on your product. And then we almost burst out laughing, because at that time, we'd been playtesting AoE3 for 18 months. So, how much time was spent actually playtesting these remastered Age games? Let's see, Age 4 and the definitive editions were announced back in 2017, and AoE1 DE was released in 2017. Oh no, wait, that was delayed 1 week before its release, and then came out in 2018. And since then, presumably the studios have been working on the other games. And AoE2 released in 2019 and is still getting patched in 2020. So it's a good thing this playlab was created in 2019. So does that mean there wasn't a playlab before 2019? How did people play and test the games? Did people play and test the games? Do people play and test the games? How does an internal playlab even work? I'm guessing World's Edge is based in Seattle, but then Relic is up in Vancouver. The other developers, Wicked Witch and Tantalus, are in Australia. Forgotten Empires works remotely with members from all over the world. Where is this playlab? Is it at the Microsoft offices? Who's in this playlab? Are the developers from the other studios working on the games, playing with the people in this playlab that's not at their offices? What about other people in the Age community? Sounds like a great way to get feedback from players who know what they're doing, just like Ensemble did. But then you actually would have to involve players. What exactly do Wicked Witch and Tantalus do anyway? Forgotten Empires obviously talks with members of the Age community, but these studios have never said anything? Wicked Witch makes Australian football mobile games. Were they selected to work on AoE2 because Robo watches Australian football? Anyway, then there's this last sentence, which is just this extraordinarily vague statement about spending time and energy visualizing the future of Age. I imagine that visualization included events, because Microsoft really seems to like their events. Since they're done adding civs, they will add more content, campaigns, and game modes. Why is the Empire Wars game mode receiving various bits of advertisement? Because they want to find out whether they can monetize that type of content. These events are a form of this new content. The team doubtlessly has various internal metrics for measuring player engagement, and these events are meant to boost engagement. That in itself is not a bad thing. We all like Aoe2, and we would like for more people to be playing it. But these events, when they're not resulting in game-breaking bugs, consist of little more than cosmetic mods. Let's try to make these events better. Here's an idea. Right now, the Battle of Africa tournament is going on. Why not focus an event on the African kingdom civilizations? You could embrace the educational side of the game and put out some content about their history. It would appeal to casual players and also tie in with the ongoing tournament. You could even have your scenario designers make another custom scenario for these civs. Throw it in with the Battles of the Conquerors. You could even make it unlockable for people who complete the event challenges. Maybe these challenges could just unlock it early, and it gets released for everyone at the end of the month. That way, there's a reason to complete the events, they don't lock content away from future players, and they don't merely unlock some useless cosmetic skins. And to further expand on these, instead of actual content, we get cosmetic updates and memes. Maybe I'm just too old and unaccustomed to the practices of the modern gaming industry, but I think you really want to avoid associating your product with the distasteful practices of mobile games or games as a service. Oh, what's that? They published an article titled Games as a Service? When you hear terms like games as a service, you might be tempted to associate that with popular free-to-play games, but they aren't strictly related. Games as a service is really more about how we work, and it involves staying more closely connected to you, the community, and making sure we're prioritizing the things you care about. And we're talking about games as a service because that's very much how we work with Aoe2 DE. Perhaps the most frustrating part is that Microsoft, while having spent millions on DE, can't even do the simplest of communication tasks. Contrast this process to that of the user patch, where issues received immediate patches, detailed updates about the features that were fixed, and apologies for issues the user patch didn't even cause. Microsoft can't even fix bugs in time for tournaments that they're sponsoring. Compared to the user patch patch notes, Age of Mythology Extended Edition just received a patch fixing various memory leaks and crashes. That's rather vague. So let's go check out the full list of changes for more details. I'm sure that will explain exactly what was fixed. We'll just head on over to the game stability section and, of course, various memory leaks and crashes. That explains everything. Let's just do a quick rundown of a number of the bugs and the weird design choices that have appeared in recent updates. Chat messages simply don't appear in multiplayer custom scenarios, making it impossible to talk to teammates or other players without Discord or some external program. Random map generation has changed the way specifying the number of tiles for a land works, resulting in tournament admins needing to fix their maps, and in arena maps from the ranked map pool that don't give players any woodlines. The in-game grid finally was improved to the point that it's almost on par with the modded grid. But it was set to a default color of completely transparent, and the slider to adjust the transparency is very easy to miss since it's in a different part of the options menu than the toggle to turn the grid on and off. If you checked the Disable Ugc Warnings checkbox, then there was a bug where your files would never download since there was no way to accept the download. And even if you did check the box, then file transfers often still wouldn't work correctly, such as the game not detecting the host has the files, they just transfer to the other users, and crashing the host when they launch the scenario. This made custom scenarios almost unplayable, and led to a general sentiment of forum comments claiming that HD, which, by the way, is a completely buggy mess, is a better place to play CBA or other popular custom scenarios than is DE. And when this critical bug was fixed, the patch notes didn't even mention fixing it. In team game matchmaking, the ELO for pre-made teams would be added together, whereas the ELO for randomly matched teams would use the average. This resulted in incredibly unbalanced team games, where pre-made teams of new players would get matched with randomly made teams of experts. Despite many forum posts about this issue, it took almost 5 months to fix what was probably one line of code. After the May update, team games simply became unplayable, with many players crashing when the game launched and unable even to get a game started. Switching back and forth between beta versions can erase your campaign progress, and for custom campaigns, you can't get it back, since attempting to use the IR winner cheat code crashes the game in a custom scenario. The Siege Tower continues proving itself to be an incredibly buggy unit, with many players reporting crashes that happen in games involving them. Pathfinding of units, especially melee units, continues to be atrocious. Ranged units have become much more powerful, as melee units cannot even attack them. For months, players were affected by the 5-minute disconnect issue, completely preventing them from playing multiplayer unless they tried using a VPN as a workaround. There is a chat filter that is overly aggressive in censoring player messages, including messages written by the AI, taunts, and the names of units in the game. And if you're tough enough to get into the salty spittoon and want to put up with a few inappropriate messages, then you can't just go to the options menu and turn off the chat filter. That feature didn't come around until Age of Empires 3. User interface mods were broken, so everyone who had a UI mod installed would end up with an unusable interface until they deactivated the mod, or the mod creator figured out the update affected their mod and was able to spend time updating it. And disabling the mods could be difficult, since the menu for deactivating the mod was affected by the change. The event trophy related to TCs is visible even in the fog of war, so you can see if your opponent plays TCs even if you haven't scouted them explicitly. Some of these issues have been fixed, but that in itself isn't great when we already have a version of the game where they're not broken in the first place. A good portion of the patch notes are spent detailing how they fixed issues the earlier patches introduced. It's like they're patrolling back and forth but not actually going anywhere. And that's just the bugs I came up with quickly off the top of my head. I'm sure there are tons of other issues just waiting to be discovered. Rather than discussing the Battle of Africa, current forum posts are about bugs and cheaters. Here's an example of how addressing issues actively, rather than ignoring them, as was done with the 256 times bug, ends up being helpful. Back when HD was released, there was a stream featuring Doubt and the Viper. These players have been experts from back then all the way to today. You might recognize Doubt from the emotes and the memes, and you might recognize the Viper from his performance as Norwegian Macbeth. But there was a problem with this stream. HD was a buggy mess, and they couldn't play the show match. Actually, this reminds me of the Mixer show match that didn't get played on DE's launch day. Anyway, when a Reddit thread popped up ridiculing the poor stream, a community manager engaged with the comments, explained his point of view, and turned what could have been a messy situation into people expressing sympathy for him. Contrast this reaction to the current situation, where, other than a small number of posts on the forums that aren't connected to the community, there hasn't been any real communication that addresses the issue publicly. Ensemble Studios showed a great deal of pride in their work of making a game that was polished, tested, and finished. The community wants to see the same level of engagement from the current developers. The studio lead and creative director have appeared in Aoe4 trailers and in occasional interviews, but they've never come out to the community and spoken with us. Rather than a post or two on a forum that no one reads, come to the community and engage with us. When there are bugs, write a post explaining what's going on. Don't leave us in the dark. If you want to show the community that you're listening, it's not enough merely to say that you're listening. Instead, show us you're listening by actually talking with us. The captain is responsible for their ship, and you can't endeavor a small community team to solve issues outside the purview of what their job encompasses. You can hire people who worked on the original game, but you can't simply replicate the time and the environment in which they were successful. If you don't give them adequate resources, then this type of broken patch is the result you're going to get. And it's the result we consistently have received.